Yes, yes.
John, I didn't email them. I just printed them out for them so they'd have them on their desk.
Okay. We provided the front and the back for the work-live units. The front and the back for the other townhomes. There's two types. There's the lane loaded and then the front loaded.
So are these with the 3 stories, those are the live work units?
Correct.
Okay. And then the other ones are the regular units?
Of the regular units, there's 11 lane loaded.
What is
So
that?
those garages will be facing the road, the internal road.
Okay.
And then the front doors will be on the opposite side of the building, accessed from a sidewalk. And then the front loaded, there are 19 of those, and the garage and the front door on the same side of the building. All the rest of these units are 2-story. Of course, this being phase N, the residents will have full access to the clubhouse down at the south end. There's going to be a beautiful trail along the south side of this phase, winding from Gateway Drive over to the
That would connect to the park?
to the east, correct, as part of the city trail plan. There's a considerable open space there on the south end that will be available to all the residents as well.
So are you going to put any playground equipment there?
No, there's not any plan for playground equipment.
Okay.
Open field. There's considerable parking, especially if you take into account the driveways. We have 148 parking spots. 76 are in garages, 18 are in stalls, and then if you count the driveways, there's 54. Not to include parking along Gateway Drive. There were, I think, required 86, and we have 148. Yeah, it's been a well thought out community, and looking forward to seeing this go up. Complete the construction over there.
When is that completion slated?
End of the summer is when we should be done, and then depending for vertical. Depends on when they start the building. It's hard to say.
Can you point out the clubhouse again, the area where that's going to be?
Well, the clubhouse is in the southern phases. That was in phase A.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have a drawing for that.
It's by the roundabout.
Gotcha.
On the way to the stake center.
Yeah. Okay.
When is that slated to be finished?
The clubhouse?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have a construction completion date. We're working through some issues, I believe, but it's mostly completed.
There's not a swimming pool there,
Not yet.
but there is one planned.
Yeah.
Okay, that will be nice for the residents.
Yeah, it will be. There's going to be a lot of amenities there. It's going to be a nice clubhouse.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions for me?
Commission, any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Government, thanks for their ambitions. That really helps.
Those are nice. Okay. I don't have any questions. It looks good. We're excited to see the live work units and see how they work out and how people respond to those actually. Are you advertising them as such now and they're for sale?
They're not for sale yet, but
I would be interested to know what the interest level is.
there is a huge demand in the, of course, it's a hot market for any type of housing.
Yeah.
I went online and looked up at realtor.com for townhomes. That was my only search parameter within Cache County. There wasn't anything available. So it's going to be a great high demand product.
Well, we have a lot of small businesses in Providence, and I would think that the live work would be popular. So
It will be.
if you'll keep us posted on that, that would be nice.
You bet.
We've had, they're not for sale yet, but just internally, people that are aware of the project. We've had a lot of interest in people approaching us already.
Specifically, the work live part of it.
Yeah, a lot of people interested in that product.
Okay, it's good to know. Okay. Well, since we don't have any comments or questions, I would entertain a motion. Whoever does the motion needs to remember that we need reasons. No pressure.
Madam Chair, if they just reference the staff report that was included in your packet,
They don't have to say for.
they wouldn't have to, if they're okay with those reasons, if they want to just reference the staff report included in the packet, that would work.
That's great. So I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the final plat, ID number 02096005, a 3.2 acre area located at 60, general area of 60 North Gateway Drive, to include the findings of fact and Providence City general plan information and the conclusions, law, and conditions.
Okay, you move to approve.
Approve, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Robert Perry, a second by Brian Marble to approve. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So you're in business.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Okay, we have a preliminary plat. Planning Commission will consider and may vote on a request to approve a preliminary plat for Ficus Commercial Subdivision, a 4-lot subdivision with 3 commercial lots and 1 remainder residential parcel located in the general area of 750 West, 300 South, otherwise known as 1700 South, on that side of the street, right? So, I'm assuming, Kent, you're here to speak to that.
Only if I need to.
No, I think you just ought to speak. I get what you say. Yeah. Entertain us.
That picture in my packet, I'm not seeing it. You pulled it up on here.
Am I supposed to speak?
I got a question for you, Ken.
Okay.
There was a. I'll wait till you get up to the.
I'm going to be official, yes.
There was a low area with some standing water. Is that? I know we addressed it prior.
That's part of the subdivision, and it's the corner piece right here.
Yeah.
And then these two are pretty flat. The 2 lots, they're about 1.44 acres, if I remember right. Just east of Logan Extermination. Those currently have offers on them. The corner piece does not, and the corner piece is a complicated piece with the wetlands that it has on it.
Is that running water or is just standing water?
No, it's running water well,
It's from Little Ballard.
it moves. It's not just standing. It comes from under the highway from the Little Ballard and then goes out onto the Halder property.
Okay.
Not very fast, but it does move.
Carries a lot of silt to my property.
Yes.
Goes under the road. And he's put all those piles of dirt there, but he still doesn't have an answer from the Army Corps, does he? It's chicken and the egg thing. Army Corps wants to know what he's going to do with it.
You know, it's
And
interesting.
the buyers want to know what
Right.
The Army Corps.
The Army Corps wants to know who the buyer is, and there's someone that approached us just in the last 10 days, and they might be interested in buying, if the other two buyers back out, they might be interested in buying the whole piece. And if they buy the whole piece, then there might be just a pond or something on the corner, which a lot of people would like to see.
A water feature.
A water feature, yeah.
So the lot closest to the extermination building is going to be the it's a residential parcel.
No,
No.
they're all three on 1700 South would be commercial.
Okay, good. So where's the residential parcel?
It would be Jerry's own home.
Okay, all right.
That be,
That's where the log cabin is. It shows it on it to the south.
Yeah, it's all of this, the remainder piece. This whole piece
okay,
is the fourth lot. And that is residential, I think.
Agriculture.
Agricultural, okay.
I got a little mixed up there. I see lot number 4 on the furthest east, and then I see lot number 1 at the southern western part of it. So that's where I got a little confused. Is it?
And I'm confused too,
I
because
thought-
I thought it was lot
I thought
1, 2,
Jerry
3, and
sold this
Jerry's
one.
was 4.
Didn't Jerry sell this one?
Jerry sold Logan Extermination,
Right.
but the other 2 lots east of Logan Extermination, well, everything but Logan Extermination in that picture, Jerry still owns.
Okay.
He's hoping to sell the 2 smaller lots soon.
Yeah, when I saw residential, I thought we turned that down for it
Yes,
to be residential.
you did.
There. Okay.
Yeah.
So, is it currently agricultural? All of it?
No, only the remainder parcel that the log home is sitting on, and then the area behind that is showing with the hash marks. That's the agricultural portion.
Okay. So the subdivision is going to be 3 lots, and we're going to change it, or is it already commercial?
Commercial
my-
highway.
Yeah, my understanding is from, I'm sorry, I keep,
So there's a portion of that.
my understanding is from this, approximately this line going east and west on the north side of that is highway commercial now.
Okay.
On the south side is agricultural.
So you just want a subdivision, you just want to define it, and we're not changing the zoning on it?
No,
It's still commercial highway?
no, highway
district?
commercial.
Okay, and then the residents will stay as agricultural? Okay,
The residence that won't be agricultural.
He has no plans to do anything with that. That's where he lives and he plans to stay there, so.
But it's not zoned agricultural, is it, where his house is?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it couldn't be.
No, ag property, you can have one
You have
residence.
One house? Okay. That's what I should be doing with my house on the other corner. Okay.
So, Brian, thank you. That was a good comment. We're not asking for a change of any kind.
just a subdivision,
Right.
but you got 2 types, and the property was already those types.
Because they wanted to put residential on the lot next to.
That's right.
Yeah, about a
We-
year ago, that's where
We
we
turned
were.
that down. It's not the right use for that particular land. Or at least the commission didn't feel like it was.
Right.
Okay, so, any other questions for Kent? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
zooming in.
I know.
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for parcel number 0209000011, located in a general area of 750 west, 300 south, and to include the Providence City General Plan findings of fact and the conclusions of law and conditions.
Okay,
Did I get it all?
I believe so. So we have a motion
I'll second it.
by Robert Perry, a second by Brian Marble. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Did you say it was sold, Ken? A couple of the parcels are sold out? Under
They're
contract?
under contract
Okay, cool.
since last February.
No reason to hurry, right? Okay,
Must be-
okay. Next item on the agenda. Thanks, Ken. We have a study item, proposed wastewater sewer collection master plan review from Sunrise Engineering.
I was
So
gonna make a motion to move that down and move the number 4 up to
we're
number 3.
thinking this isn't going to take very long and this is going to take forever, so.
Okay, so I would make the motion.
You saw. So,
Joe, can you lean up and talk into the mic?
so it wasn't recorded, so you don't have to say it again.
No, I just said I sent an email indicating I was gonna make the motion because Danny McFarland couldn't make it, but he did write an email making some comments. But Justin is here and I know that he's volunteered his time and I just didn't want to, but you've indicated you don't think that item number 3 is gonna take very long.
It won't.
And then I won't make the motion if you don't mind, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Let's go ahead and cover the wastewater sewer collection master plan review. And these maps right here that you have are indicative of what has been discussed.
So what I'd like to just kind of briefly go over with you if you will.
Yeah.
One is there's no action of the planning commission to take on this plan. This isn't a planning commission agenda or a planning commission required item. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have given you information, and one of the biggest things we want to show you is your involvement in the general plan and the decisions you make have consequences down the road. And so we're showing you, and that's kind of what we're trying to really present and drive home is that when you make the zoning, we plan for road, water, sewer according to that zoning. So this plan is based on the general plan in which you were instrumental in and adopting. When you make changes to those plans, the dominoes become bigger and bigger as we get these master plans based on that. So if you go to make a rezone request and you're going from traditional residential to multifamily, there's a whole different design sewer problem that exists, and a lot of those go. So we're trying to help you make sure that you see the big picture of how that domino flows. So that's one of those. So it's simply a presentation of information that we're going to share with you. You don't have to act on it. And so anyway, just kind of giving that outline for you. And so this is really information just to help you to know what's going on and how things affect. So.
And prior to this, there have been a group of owners that met together of the property that would be built on to talk about what might be planned for that area. And that's what this plan is coming.
Actually, Kathleen, This plan is the entire city. They looked at the entire city.
Oh, okay,
Yes, the southwest portion was kind of the
the beginning,
point,
right.
but when we started looking into it, it seemed like it made a lot more sense to look at the city on a whole instead of just focusing on that southwest portion. But they did certainly consider the southwest portion, and we'll have recommendation for that when all is said and done.
Great, thank you.
And they've been to a lot of other pieces of this, they've been a lot of places in the city. So why don't we give you your 10, 15 minute due and
Okay, I will keep it as short
Tell us your name.
and concise as possible. I'm Stephen Wood. I'm with Sunrise Engineering. I'm project manager underneath Scott Archibald. He's the main PE, and there's a connection with this sewer study. As has been indicated by Ryan, we've met a couple times with Ryan and some city council members and discussed a couple things. We've met with landowners. We've met with Ryan and Rob, your public works director, on evaluating the sewer system. So ultimately what I want to do is just kind of provide a general synopsis of what we've accomplished thus far and where we're moving forward. And as Ryan indicated, the kind of how your decisions impact the sewer and how the sewer can impact your decisions. And likewise, and again, I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. I don't want to delay for the gentleman behind me. So as a kind of a 10,000 foot view, everything in a city has a health. Your roads, your sewer, your water system, your parks. And it takes, just as if we go to a doctor to evaluate our own health, the cities often come to professional engineers to evaluate the health of the various systems providing services for the city. And so Providence City, starting with the mayor as well as timetable, it's time to look at the sewer system to evaluate how it's doing and providing for Providence City residents and its capability to provide for future growth. So what we did is we went out, we gathered survey data on your main trunk line manholes. So what that is you get survey data, you pull off elevation of manholes, you open them up, you look down, you get the different pipe diameters. What that does is we create a digital model of your entire sewer system underneath your roads. And that first image is actually what you're looking at of your various pipes. There's about over 900 manholes in your system. Your pipe ranges between 18-inch and 8-inch pipe. And what we do is we look at those slopes, look at all the data that we can gather and evaluate how much wastewater can your system take, and when does your system start to be overwhelmed? When do we need to plan improvements? When do we need to upsize pipes? When do we need to look at various items throughout the town to make sure that it can adequately handle that? Because this is something that you don't want to be behind the 8 ball on.
No.
When sewers start backing up, it was 10 years past when you should have looked at it.
So the light green, larger pipes.
So this map actually does not indicate any pipe sizes. What this map is actually indicating is the current health of your sewer system. Green pipes are good pipes. Yellow pipes are pipes that we may be looking at, and red pipes are pipes that should be in concern right now. The majority of your
Existing pipes.
existing pipes, this is all current. This is 2020. If you look on the right hand side, there is a date stamp that says 2020 existing collection system. And I guess how I will try to keep up it. So what it is, it's a D over D ratio, but it's basically determining how full are your pipes of sewage when they are in operation. And as you can see, most of Providence City is all green. The only issue that is currently is your outfall line that leads to a lift station that lifts your sewage to the Logan City wastewater facilities. So it's actually a piece of infrastructure that is not inside Providence City limits. It's actually going to the golf course within Logan.
So that's the yellow right here.
That's a little segment of yellow. So a couple sections
And red.
are actually getting close to capacity or in a situation in which we should be paying a little bit closer attention. But all in all, Providence City is actually doing extremely well in terms of their capacities. And talking with Rob takes actually excellent care of your.
Do you have a copy? Do you want to look at it?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
But Rob actually does a wonderful job at maintaining your system and keeping your system clean. I've looked at quite a few videos of different sections of pipes. So if you ever get bored, there's nothing like watching a video of a sewer pipe.
We're good.
But all in all, your system is doing fantastic. But what we really want to bring your attention to is the next one. So when you did your general plan, you discussed population growth, you discussed historic rates of growth and future rates. So that percentage actually kind of translates over this, and I believe in your general plan you adopted a percentage growth of about 2%. In a sewer system, you typically go a little bit higher, and that's primarily because you really don't want to be behind the 8 ball with your sewer system. If you're behind, as Ryan put during one of our meetings, if you're behind in parks and development, that's okay. If you're behind in your sewer system, residents come complaining really fast. And so typically with sewer plans, we have a higher growth rate. So you can see right there that our growth rate is for this master plan is 2.48%. And currently, your population, you have about 2.9 individuals per home. That's kind of an average across the entire Providence area. Of course, you're going to have some that have more and you're going to have some that have less, but it balances out to about 2.9. And we get down to your population growth for various years, 2020, 2030, 2040. 2070 is only used for sizing capacities, so for this purpose we can ignore 2070. But you can see that within, between 2020, you're projected to add close to just shy of 3,000 people. The subdivision that just left was visionary. I mean, residents need a place to grow. The explosion here in Utah is unprecedented. We actually had a managers meeting within Sunrise indicating the growth throughout the nation and all of the coasts, your east and west coast. People are leaving those general areas and they're flocking to the Midwest. In fact, within the top 5 communities in the nation that are growing, 5 are in Utah. So growth is coming, whether we like it or not, so we better plan for it type mentality in this. And so we're projecting some significant growth in the next decade.
Is Cass Valley one of the 5?
Logan is considered one of them, yes. So, and I think Franklin is actually considered one as well. Franklin City is on there as well.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Franklin, Idaho?
Yeah, I just talked to the city manager earlier today.
Not Preston, but Franklin.
Yeah. I need to dig a little bit more into that, but she was talking to me. She's like, they've got some growth coming their way. But what these population comes, so it's not just residents that are coming. As your population grows, commercial will grow as well. And different commercials have different impact on your sewer system. A restaurant behaves larger than a home, whereas an attorney's office is going to behave less than a home. And so what we do during the sewer process is we basically evaluate everyone compared to a basic common residential home. So that ERU, you can see that abbreviation stands for equivalent residential unit. So case in point, Macy's looks like, in terms of sewer system, 20 residential units. Whereas, like I said, I know there's a couple of engineering firms, there's a couple of attorney firms, they look like half of the residential unit. So what we do is we evaluate your connections, determine how much flow is coming to you. And so of that about 3,000 population, that's going to cause, if you look at that row, the new ERUs, first decade you're going to add about 1,000 ERUs, so equivalent to about 1,000 new homes. The next decade you're going to add about 1,300. And what this does to your sewer system is it just means more sewage, more to take care of, and less capacity in your existing pipes. So if there are any questions, please stop me at any given time. Don't worry. If we can jump to the next one real quick. This is that same sewer model, evaluating your existing sizes of pipes and your existing conditions, but now advanced 1 decade. And one major thing that's different on this map is those yellow areas. Those yellow areas are undeveloped areas within Providence. And this is where your zoning and your decisions in the zoning department really impact the sewer. So those areas that are in yellow is where the growth has been added. So that 1,000 and some odd ERUs have been added to those yellow areas.
You're talking about the yellow-green patches
Yeah,
as opposed to pipes?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And there are some areas that during our discussion with Ryan that your boundary actually needs to be expanded in some, primarily in the southwest quadrant. There are some areas that are currently in Millville that may be coming your route. And so those need to be added in and projected as well. But Those yellow areas are either vacant lots or lots of agricultural or other type lots that can experience growth at this point. The larger lots that aren't being developed are typically your schools, your churches, your city parks. So that's where those large parcels are in your city center that aren't being developed. So that's where the growth was projected, and the growth was applied based on your zoning map. So if it was zoned for a particular area, a particular density, case in point, 4 acre lots, that means for every 4 acres, only 1 ERU can come. But if it was zoned for 1/4 acre lots, then that means for every acre, 4 ERUs are going to impact that land. And then we rerun the model to evaluate if your existing condition can survive for the next 10 years, your existing sewer system. And as you can see, majority of your town is all green. In fact, all of your town is green. It's just that outfall line going through that golf course that becomes more problematic than it currently is. And the same situation happens for 2040, which is the next map. And that outfall line just becomes in a more problematic condition. More pipes are turning red, capacity is being lost, potential backups can occur. And part of our study also is we evaluate areas that need to be developed or can be developed and what needs to happen. So primarily that southwest quadrant of Providence City is lower than your existing sewer system, so it will require a lift station to service it. Now, whether that lift station pumps directly to your internal system or whether it pumps directly to another lift station that then takes it to Logan, or it could also even Hiram, those are options that are discussed and monetary values are assigned to them, and it's presented to determine what is the most advantageous to the city to plan for in the future. But the big takeaway that I wanted to present to you was all of this growth was based off of your planning and zoning that you approved and you put forth. And if we do alter that, it's not all of this information is completely dynamic. We can alter it, we can update it, but it's that communication between your different utilities that the city offers and the zoning and how it's developed are quite closely connected. And so, case in point, I mean, it's extremely high commercial on the southwest with some residential for, case in point, the implementation of these work home living could be placed down there. But all the development toward the foothills is all residential. In fact, one of them is the northernmost parcel. I'll have to let that one right there. The lot just south of it was developed as a high density multifamily unit, almost to the point of getting 20 units per acre. So that the parcel just north of it was developed and planned for just like that, according to your general plan. So
Have you got your cursor on it? Is that the one
Yeah,
that
right
you're
here.
talking about? Okay.
So,
Thank you.
I can go in more depth, but I don't want to take more time than I already have. Is there anything more that you'd like me to explore? Any more items that you wanted to, probably some questions or clarifications I can provide? Or?
That red outline on the northern end?
That is your annexation boundary as described by your
Right.
general plan.
Okay.
Yep.
But it's
So the dark black one that surrounds your city is your current city limits, and that orange red one is the annexation boundary.
So I thought the red ones were all over capacity.
Red lines are, red,
Red pipelines are.
Oh, the other ones are boundaries.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, so we're just strictly worried about the feed line to the.
Yeah,
to
it's
west.
basically your outfall line leading to the lift station that's located on 1000 West that lifts the sewage to the Logan treatment plants.
And that's the issue all the way through
2040.
2040.
which Providence City put that line in, has the ownership in that line. We would, if, and this doesn't account for anything that Logan is dumping into that line. So that just magnifies the problem, what they're putting in. This is modeled based on what Providence is putting into that line and what problem we're creating independent of what Logan is adding to that line. And so it would be our responsibility to replace our proportional share at least of that. And if that's the case, it's a fairly costly expense to go under the road, under the railroad.
Goes under 2 highways, your
Yep.
railroad and the Logan River and a golf course.
So why is it dashed and not a continuous red?
Because between each manhole, you have to have a manhole to service and clean. And between each manhole, a pipe's capacity is governed by both its size, its material, and the elevation it was laid at. A pipe that was laid at a 1% grade can flow far more sewage than if it was laid at a 0.5% grade. The steeper the pipe, the more you can flow. So that pipe going out there wasn't laid at a constant grade the entire way. So between manholes, it has different grades of the pipe as it moves through that area. And so some areas were laid more gradual and other areas were laid more steep. And so the red sections, they don't have enough fall across the pipe because your sewage system is all based on gravity, which is different from the culinary. Culinary, you have pressure, so it doesn't, the direction of a pipe being laid doesn't affect it as much. But gravity, the sewer is that elevation difference across a pipe is absolutely essential.
So if we were to look at 2040 and the city was to, the public works was to repair that line or do something to that line, they would just go after those red sections and repitch them?
On this one, it would be best to go for the whole outfall line, just because
Probably old enough that,
it's old enough, as well as if you're going to start doing work in a golf course or in that particular area, you might as well get it all done at once, or else you're going to be paying tenfold when you all get it all done, just because of different mobilization costs. And
So how,
green fees.
that's
Different kind of green fees.
Different kind of green fees, I know.
so the age, when you went through it, the age is all the same, isn't it? 25 years, something like that?
for the installation.
No, the age of the current system.
It was put in
Principle.
70.
I think it was put in.
Are you talking about the central part of our?
Age of wastewater.
Yeah, so some of it's obviously newer as it's grown, but yeah, some of it was built.
The sewer was
89,
built
right?
25 years ago. That's the oldest pipe we've got for sewer in the
I
city.
believe it's older than 25 years. I believe it was in
89.
It's 89.
89. So we're coming on 30 plus years.
And how long should the material last in the pipes? Is it?
PVC lasts 50 plus years.
Okay.
Concrete can last 50 plus years if it's well taken care of, and Rob actually does a wonderful job. He scours and cleans your pipes very well and looks for corrosion and replaces as needed. But that outfall line, I believe it's PVC material, and so it probably still, in terms of material life, it has good life still. It's the capacity we're worried about. And as we develop more, that capacity gets consumed even further.
And there's no other technology that you'd use to improve that flow from Providence City up to 10th West. You wouldn't put another pump in there someplace in lieu of replacing the pipe or upgrading the pipe.
So you could put a big lift station and lift it over it, but that would require more pipe. You could do, you could try and reduce your friction in your pipe, but what that does is you try and line the interior of your pipe, but all that does is reduce your cross-sectional area, which means you can flow less. Ultimately, the only way to really take care of that capacity issue is laying new pipe.
Okay.
So, I mean,
And once you start to expand and clean up one problem area, that flow goes to another spot, and then it obviously
Just kick
starts
the
to
can down the
affect,
road.
and it'll then be there, and at some point, that's why, but the question will come as well, if we're gonna have to replace this line, what are other options? And looking at that, and you mentioned that, but
and we are evaluating different options. Do you remain with Logan? Do you build your own treatment plant? Do you go to Hiram? And so we're evaluating the cost of balance of those different options to the best of our knowledge at this point in future planning.
So do you have a suggestion as to when this work takes place? Is it 2030, 2040?
If with the addition, as Ryan said, where there's some flows from Logan entering in that system that aren't accounted for, that would be probably a capital improvement that would be for the next decade, within the next decade.
Okay. And we paid off the current bond on the sewer?
Yes.
It's 10 years ago.
And we'll put monetary numbers to all this, and in fact, I'm presenting to the council in a week from today with some cost estimates and with different alternatives and recommendations of what to do and cost analysis and economic flow.
So you're not seeing anything in the city itself when there's an
No,
issue
your
coming
city is
up?
actually doing wonderful. It's
So
nice to-
our
Outflow.
city fathers did a pretty good job when they put it in and
I would say so, yeah.
decided and all that back in the 80s, 90s.
No, they did good.
Stephen, thank you.
Yes, I apologize for taking
One
more time
question
than.
that I wanted to ask.
We have one,
I'll follow
one
you.
question.
Oh, yes.
It's probably beyond me, but I'm just curious about, Millville decided to go to the south and take their sewage to be treated by Hiram City, as I understand it. Is that
Yes,
right?
yeah, they did.
Is that right?
Yes.
So basically, the way that our system is designed, the only servicer is Logan City. So they've,
Currently the only servicer, but we could build a line we could build a line that where Millville's gonna connect on and connect onto them.
It is possible to choose a different servicer option. Currently, you are with Logan, and it's maybe the best word is managing is maybe the easiest going to Logan. Economically, we don't know if it's the cheapest, but you're already set up to go to Logan, so it's easiest to continue that way in terms of management. But it is completely possible that you could, in fact, expand the Hiram plant and send your sewage that way, and it could be cheaper. That's what we're looking at, trying to determine.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I'm not a decision maker. It doesn't count.
Well, it's good to ask the questions always.
Biggest thing is I just wanted to inform the planning commission of how we're using your data, as well as things to consider when approving subdivisions and stuff. Is where is your existing sewer
Additional growth.
and where is the growth going to be? So,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thanks for your information. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. Sure did.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Now we come to the fun one. It might take us a little while.
Yeah.
So, you're on.
Do you
Would
know
you like to
Justin?
listen to me first? Is that how you like to
Yeah.
proceed? Okay.
I would tell us your name and
Sure.
where you're from and
My name is Justin Campbell. I'm an architect. I own an architecture firm here in the valley. I'm actually originally from Providence. So I grew up in the South Bend. So
Campbell. Did you say Campbell?
Campbell, yep. Yeah, Kay and Margaret are my parents. I live in Logan now, but I still consider Providence my home. So.
we need to have you closer to the mic.
Sure, absolutely. So I was invited by Joe to come and just speak. I'm not entirely sure, or I don't have a full breadth of the history of what you're trying to accomplish here. I do want to start out and commend you for considering such an option, because as the valley grows, I feel like this is an ideology that we all must adopt. And the reason why I say that is that we shouldn't fear density. We should fear density when it's done the wrong way. Density is going to allow us to grow and preserve what I feel is the most important thing in this valley, which is the beauty. If we ignore it and we don't address density in an appropriate way, growth will come and sprawl will continue to happen. We're actually running out of room, so this is actually going to be more of a need than just a progressive idea. So I wanted to say that. One thing that wasn't clear to me, which I think is a very important aspect of this type of consideration, is how it fits into a master plan. And just briefly studying the boundaries of the city, I wasn't quite sure how or where this would be best placed. Has that been considered?
Well, in our plan, the zones have all been set. So now if somebody comes along and wants to change that, they have to come to the planning and zoning to change from one zone to another. Specifically tonight, we've been, well, in the past couple of meetings, we've been looking at a specific mixed use district. And that mixed use requires, correct me if I'm wrong, 20% commercial, at least 20% commercial, at least 20% retail, and then how much residential?
It actually requires residential and retail. Non-retail business is optional, and then the way it reads is no one use can be less than 20% of the entire project. So 20% is the minimum for whatever uses they put in there. But you could end up with a 20% retail and 80% residential, or vice versa, depending on the development.
Okay.
The maximum is 39 dwelling units per acre for the residential. All of us kind of feel like that's a lot.
For 45 feet it is. In maximum height.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, and that's probably one of my, that's a feedback that I'd like to extend, is that don't fear height. There's ways to deal with height in an appropriate way, so you're not landing monstrosity structures in
sticking out like sore thumbs.
Yeah, and I think that for me that's where I feel like potentially mixed use. It needs. I would recommend it be viewed as a district, and it's zoned specifically for that, as opposed to, if I understood correctly, potentially someone could come in and say, hey, I want to do a mixed-use development on these 3 acres, and but everything else around it is zoned commercial or residential, and I feel like that's where things get a little undefined. I think the more from my training, more constraints actually spurn better creativity, not having just an open-ended ticket. So
we currently have 3 pieces of property, right, that are zoned mixed use. Okay. 2 of them are already heading down the track.
Okay.
And then we have...
One of them was Danny McFarland's project. If I remember right.
2.
2 of them?
2 of the 3 are mixed use, and they are...
But the one that you would hope, they're not asking for mixed use. They're asking for straight multifamily. On the
one clear down here by Garden Drive.
So
we have this district.
Mm-hmm.
We have it available that somebody could request it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is define exactly what it is, and perhaps not have so many dwelling units,
mm-hmm.
because you couldn't get that many with the 45-foot height.
Correct. Yeah, I'm doing a project in Logan City that's 70 feet tall.
Is that the one by the high school?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's 37 units. It's in less than an acre, so you can kind of gauge. Now, I will admit that this project that I'm working on is a little more for the affluent than it is for maybe a college couple or low-income housing. Okay, so it is geared towards that demographic for sure. But that's not neither good or bad. I just wanted to qualify that.
How big are each unit?
1,000 square feet. So they're not terribly big. They're 2 bedrooms. they'll be nice, but they won't be. It won't be for. This isn't low income housing by any stretch. And we're doing rooftop terraces. They're gonna have spectacular views of the valley, per my client's request, not per the zoning ordinance. So, well, all right. So bring it back to my comment. Maybe I need to clarify a little bit more about what I mean by a district. Is that personally, I feel like there's a lot of good things happening here, but my personal opinion, my professional opinion, is that it needs to be supported with the proper traffic corridors, with proper setbacks in the master plan, and it needs to be solidified as the area. And you could even potentially consider a redevelopment area for this type of district to incentivize developers to come in and do this type of structure. However, I do feel like the height limitation is going to be a little bit limiting, because I think that at least in the market that we are right now, a lot of people are pushing for heavy residential, and so they're going to push to relax the commercial side of this and go for those 39 units, because for them it's more of a surety that they're going to be a profitable project. And so like the 20% retail, that's great, but how does it relate to traffic flow? How does it relate to pedestrian access? Like, what type of a community is it really trying to accomplish? And I think that just in a small area is not good enough. It needs to be considered as a much broader scope somewhere in the city. And I don't know if that land is available, but just thinking as a mixed use, traditional, successful mixed use, those are the principles that go along with something that is successful.
Just to show you on our map here, just so that you can kind of get an idea.
Yeah.
We are here, and two of the projects, one is right behind Macy's, and one is up here above the movie theater. So those are the two potential.
Okay.
Now the other third one is down below, but they're not asking for it. So these are the two. So they're close to retail and some commercial. But that's kind of where, at this point, it lays. It's going to give you a lay of the land.
Okay.
It's going to give you a picture.
Well, and
if that helps.
Yeah, and
and it's not that far from other housing, actually. Within a couple of blocks.
Yeah, and so I think I actually might. One of my project managers might be working on the project behind Macy's there. My firm might be working on that. I think it's planned mostly for townhomes, and then.
No, townhomes, they're apartments.
They're apartments.
And condos,
or not vertical.
Right, right. So with the surrounding neighborhood, I actually think it's actually an appropriate response as far as a development, but I wouldn't call it mixed use. But then that's okay. When I think of mixed use from a traditional standpoint, it's really aimed towards quality density. And
Vertical.
And it's vertical, yeah. And so, if there are areas where that can be implemented into the zone, it's really tricky, because I really feel like it needs to be like a full-fledged district for mixed use to really be successful, because what you want to do is, in the end, you want to encourage people to live, to shop, to work there without a bunch of travel of like vehicles. And so just isolated projects here and there, I don't think really are going to accomplish that. But again, I want to come back and say I commend you for thinking about this, because I do feel like it needs to happen valley-wide. I'm just not, anyway, that's my feedback, is like, how does it relate to your zoning? Another thing that I don't want to take a bunch of your time, I do feel like you need to address in some way how you park, how people park as a potential retail destination. So it's great to think that like, oh, in mixed use, those that are around are going to support it. Well, you also want people up on the benches coming down and support it. Say it's like a restaurant. So the only way to do that is through a parking structure. And I really feel like you got to strong arm development and say that this is what a parking structure means to us. How is that appropriate? Otherwise, you're gonna land massive parking structures, and at times a developer might look at that as just like whatever is the bare minimum I'm going to do, and it might not be the best for those in the city's best interest.
Like IHC's hospital structure.
Yes.
It's
just lands.
Some houses and
it lands there, and
residential.
it's necessary. Okay, right? But there's so many things that we can do in to encourage development, to either put it behind the structure, or hide it, or have it incorporated into the actual architecture. Because in the end, when we think about these structures, as big as a building can get, humans essentially stay the same. And so the scale of the human interaction with that building is very important. So you're not going to park on the very top level of your building. That's just not feasible. So what is the parking structures to get this type of density need to happen? And so what does that mean? And how can those be addressed through a zoning code that would encourage quality interaction with those that actually use the structure?
How many stories down are you going in Logan?
We're not going down at all.
Are you putting any?
It's a 2-story concrete structure, and we're putting architectural panels, and it's gonna be well lit. Yep.
Above ground.
Above ground, and actually, I think
Somebody
that
told us that they were gonna go 2 floors down.
you're probably thinking of the project to the north.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think it's called Mill Creek, and I was not the architect on that project.
So you're going to have a commercial on that one, on the first floor? No, it's all going to be residential. First 2 floors are going to be parking, and you're dressing that up so it's not obvious.
Well, it will be an architectural grade concrete, which you think like, well, what does that mean? Well, a nicer look to it than just like some parking structures you see in town are just so brutal because it's raw. And it depends on your architectural taste as well, because like a lot of people think that brutal concrete is exactly what they want, but I just don't think it's really conducive to
It's
the
artsy but not beautiful.
that right. Yeah, you appreciate it from a certain perspective, right? Right. So. But what this project that I'm talking about is we're going to be very successful in is that on top of the parking structure, it's going to be elevated, and they're going to have nearly 360 views of the valley from an elevated perspective, which it doesn't occur anywhere. Now, I'm getting on a tangent here. I'm trying to give an example of really what this type of density would look like.
So is that going to be there where the old Wonder Bread place was? Is that where it will be? Is that house coming down that's right there?
No.
It'll be next to that house.
It's right, yeah. It's basically, and that's another thing to consider, that I went to Logan City, like they want, in their zoning code, they want 10-foot setbacks around the property, and I told them, look, I land this structure here, and I'm not even maximizing the amount of units I can put on an acre with this project. Someone comes in and tears that house down, does the exact same thing. We got 20 feet between 2 70-foot tall structures. That interstitial space is not healthy for everybody. So, and especially across the street from the high school. I was a high school kid once. Those interstitial spaces can be spaces for potential trouble. And the reason why I bring that to your attention is like that has to be considered too in a mixed-use development, because as you try to come in and land 39 units per acre, well, that's going to fill your acre with parking, and so you need to have the flexibility, which I think you might in this document that I have here in front of me, to go to a potential 0 lot line and allow that to happen. And we can do that and still be safe with fire, still be safe with life, with life safety. But don't let, so it's something that I brought to the zoning commission of Logan, that I brought to their attention. It's like, you guys shouldn't have this. You should allow me to go to a 0 lot line. That's best for everybody. But they disagreed. So anyway, so that's another thing to consider.
Is there a successful mixed use that you see in the valley? Are the ones up close to campus?
I think they're trending that way.
They're getting the student count
Yeah.
that they want up there. Are they getting the commercial?
No.
They're getting the parking?
No.
Really? They both lack.
Yeah. Yeah, both of those do. And go ahead.
I have a question. I think one of the things we haven't talked about is parking structures, and I think that's a very interesting one. My question would be is, how much of a density, how big of a project is there to warrant or to justify the building of a structure? Does that make sense? I mean, if they have the 3 acres and they can build 39 units per acre or whatever, and they need because I think at some point that you're exactly right. If you don't have a structure, you've taken all the rest of the property with parking, and you have no green space.
You'll never maximize that 39 units per acre without a parking structure ever. So if that's critical to the agenda here, it will never happen without a parking structure. So those parking structures are going to show up, in my opinion. Like I brought that project to Logan City, and like I swear everyone was like wide-eyed, like, what is this? This is massive. And I'm like, it doesn't even maximize your zoning allowance. And they've had that ordinance for 10 years. And
So what's the maximum?
I think it's 42 per acre, and I'm like 0.8, or no, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm 37 units, 2
And
bedrooms,
how tall? 70 feet.
70 feet. But I think I can go up to 84 in Logan.
And that's how
But
many
that
stories?
70 feet is actually limited by the building code, not by zoning ordinance, for the type of construction.
And how many stories?
6 stories.
So are they condominiums then?
That's a great question. I think they're slated for apartments now,
Apartments? Okay.
but we are designing it that he could potentially sell those individual units.
May I ask another question? So, and I apologize since I had to step out for a second, but you mentioned a couple of times done appropriately. Whose codes do you think are good that we could look at?
I could research that and get back to you. What I mean by that is that to look at it more than just a few isolated areas of your city.
Okay.
Allow this to happen as much as possible, because what it's going to do is, and then also make sure that that is in line with the type of development that you want, with sidewalks, with setback, with roads, with your roundabouts or your traffic studies. I would say that it needs to be as much as you possibly would feel comfortable allowing, and then as you do that, and the parking, and I really hate talking about parking, but we drive here, okay,
Evil.
right? And I'm worried that potentially that's going to be the thing that you're going to hate about this district if you don't address it. But you want to have a chunk of your city be planned for walkability. And so when I say appropriately, that's held in one of the highest regards. because the more people can walk in a mixed-use zone, the more healthier it is. It's when you have a bunch of bustling traffic that no one wants to let their kids ride their bikes down the road or whatever it is, or even walk on an evening to their favorite restaurant. They'd rather just drive a half a block because it's not a walkable city. That's where things, in my opinion, are not appropriate. Am I making sense?
Well, implementing what you're talking about is not hitting here yet, but what you're saying is appropriate. Yeah, you don't want too much traffic.
So I think that there's a lot of things going on here. I would say that it's maybe a mixed use or a multi-use zone is maybe a little bit more appropriate for Providence. That would allow a property to be, quasi-residential and commercial. But if you're going for density, then you got to make this a big district, and you got to plan for it. You got to have infrastructure in line. You got to have your roads and your sidewalk. All those ordinances need to be in line, and I think that that's what this valley needs. I really do. Is someone to step up and do this and make it nice, because just kind of doing it bits and pieces is not going to. The rest of the commercial spaces, no one's going to want because it's going to be hard to get to and park. I mean, there's so many economic reasons that I'm not really qualified to speak to. I just see it. So it's more of a comment from a citizen than from a professional.
Ryan, you had a comment?
I did. You say you're going to have 38, 37 units, something like that. How big is your parking structure? I think that's what I'd like to know, how big the parking structure is.
How many cars is it going to hold?
How's it going to hold, and how many stories is it, and how does it work out with project? Is it, you got 6 stories, 2 of those are parking, so you got 4 stories that fit your, so is that
residential?
Fit your residential?
That's correct.
So 4-story residential, 2-story on the bottom.
That's correct.
I think one of the things we've looked at is trying to peg this as a mixed use. We're saying bottom story's got to be retail to make that work, because you got to fit in the all those round pegs into square pegs in a round hole. Anyway, but you're using some of that elevation. If we had 4 stories and that can be achievable, but the parking is what isn't achievable in that 4 stories. Is that? Am I
if someone was to maximize that over 3 acres or 1 acre, a half acre, they're not going to be able to get that density and have any. Well, some cities have 0 parking, but I just don't think that's an appropriate response for who we are in Cache Valley. Like if we were much denser, and someone could potentially live without a vehicle.
Well, you can do that in New York, but
Exactly.
even Salt Lake,
Even Salt Lake struggles with that.
they have to have parking, and is it like 1.5 spaces per unit?
Yeah, that's a.
Is that the standard?
Well, Logan's actually 1 per bedroom. Well, they have. Well, that's all right. I digress. I shouldn't be quoting, but I think it's actually 1.5 per 1 bedroom, and then it's 2 stalls per 2 bedroom. So the way that the developer looked at that is like, actually, I want all 2 bedrooms, just because. So parking drove that decision, which I don't think is necessarily a bad one, but.
So how many spaces are in this parking garage?
74, so 2 per unit.
2 per unit.
Mm-hmm.
No resident, no retail to the development.
No, and so I think that this particular project, for its proximity to a downtown, I guess, as I'll call Logan, I think it actually could be a usable, walkable, because they have an agenda of saying, look, we're pushing for bike paths, more pedestrian friendly corridors, and they want density in certain areas. So I actually think that what they're doing is appropriate, and don't always feel like the only way to do this is to have everything all encompassed in one building.
Yeah, because there's no grocery store close to that.
There's not. But if I was to say, well, okay, if I could design the building any way that I would like to see fit, I would have put retail along that frontage of that parking structure and reduce the parking of the parking structure to accommodate for that. And
But
to
it
say
doesn't meet code if you do that.
it doesn't, but you know, code's driven by you guys make the rules. Okay?
But currently,
But if we're talking about high density and walkability, we're talking about less parking required?
If you have
One car instead of 2 cars?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the trend I'd like to see the valley go to. But in order to accomplish that, I
You have
think
to
that
change-
anything
you have
from
to
like
change
this
some
Gateway
lines.
Road west needs to be this whole mixed use district, and you know, and in 10 years you're going to see what you write today, because it will take that long for density to grow enough to where it's actually feasible for someone to tear down a building and build one of these buildings. But you're going to have to address the height at some point. In my opinion, you can't really effectively do everything in 45 feet. You just can't do it. That's just my opinion on it, because there is just the lots here are kind of too small to do it. If it's viewed more as a multi-use district where you can have different components, and then you say within a certain acreage you can have this, you can have a commercial and a residential piece, then that keeps the density lower, and I think it's more appropriate for what's going on right now. But if you have a vision of saying, no, we want a quality destination, we need a district, and this can drive that, but it needs to be a substantial area. It can't just be a few lots scattered throughout the city. It won't work.
So are you suggesting, if we were to envision this, that we look at our zoning and where we already have commercial zone, rather than making this new person that's going to try and do their higher density with the parking garage and all the cool stuff, rather than make them add to the commercial, you're saying incorporate this new stuff with the existing commercial and make that the district, not make each individual little development meet the thing.
each piece of property shouldn't be separate. It should be should be a district.
I personally
We
feel
don't
like
have districts.
Yeah, I personally feel like that can be accomplished, because I think what would drive the development would be more commercial office space, small retail space with residential above it, which all of those really, the synergy there is very good. What you're going to potentially leave out is like an industrial shop or something that doesn't want residential above it, or building code doesn't even allow it.
Right.
But you have to say, like, where is that most appropriate? Maybe in Providence that's not appropriate anymore for the future. Okay.
Industrial.
Or like a car mechanic, like the folks next door here. Like in this type of zone, that's not an those guys need to be on like 10th west of Logan, or maybe another. There's a few. I don't even know how much unincorporated land is left around here, but maybe there's a zone for that. But it really needs to own the land that it's given. And retail, commercial, and residential have great synergy with walkable spaces.
So my only concern about that idea is the problem we're running into right now is that people want multifamily. Developers want multifamily because that's a good commodity for them right now. So really what we've got are multifamily developers that are trying to get that higher density by saying they're mixed use. If we were to broaden our scope, my concern at this point in time is that they really wouldn't adhere to the spirit of getting even commercial. Let's say that we look at residential higher density as a trade-off for retail, so we relax the retail, because people say that's the hardest to get, and which I agree. I shouldn't say that there's proven demographic or proven information that that's difficult. That's my concern, though, is that we would end up with very little of any type commercial and a whole bunch of
39 acres or 39 units per acre without the other thing.
That's kind of my concern. If you open it, I mean, I really like the idea of opening it up, but that therein lies the balance that we have to have, because if it's allowed in the zone and they can meet all the requirements, then how do we tell them, no, you've got to, if we don't say each individual development has to have commercial, then how do we prevent the open area from filling up with residential? Does that make sense?
It does, and unfortunately, I don't feel qualified to answer.
Jeez, you led us right up to the edge. And you want us to jump, and you're not going to go with us.
Well, the reason why is that I feel like your question is best suited for an economist, and so my professional opinion is geared through
which is architecture.
Okay. Now, so to answer your question is like, well, how do we assure that the developers are going to have a product that supports this zone? Well, that's an economic question, but I personally cannot see growth in a density of 39 units per acre that wouldn't demand something. I mean,
something as in
something walkable.
retail?
Like I own a single family home, okay, residence.
Which we all do.
We all do, okay. I would live in one of these if it was done appropriately in the right district. It was done right.
With the right amenities.
That's
close
right.
by.
Yeah, that I could walk to.
And how many square feet would you require?
Well, for me specifically, just because I have one child, I could do 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
But I've seen developments. I've worked on projects where we've done up to 3-bedroom homes, or apartments, and I think that's absolutely in line. And I think that it can. I mean, there's no ceiling to the affluent culture that potentially would want that, right? It's more of like, well, is there enough of that demographic to support it?
That would be my question.
Right.
Does Cache Valley have the demographic population that would like to live in that kind of a unit?
Unofficially, I think I've heard that we're going to double in the next 15 years in the valley. So
well, with the amount of land that we have left, it's not going to happen here.
It's not going to happen, and so the only way you can do this appropriately is to go vertically. And then what does that mean? It's like, okay, you're only gonna when the buildings go, they got to step back, so they're not just 100 feet right on the sidewalk. That they go up 30 feet and then they step back. Things like that. Those types of principles that are done in big cities. That's really the target, is maybe this a precedent study of who's doing it right in America, which I don't think.
Have you been on Wall Street in Ogden?
Yes.
Have you seen that apartment building they're building? The doorstep is on the sidewalk.
Is it?
Yes.
31st and Wall.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Are your drawings available? Are they public yet?
For what?
For
this project you're talking about?
They are. I think they are public on.
If you've been to the planning commission,
Mm-hmm.
you would have to make them public.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to talk to my client to see if he would feel comfortable with me freely distributing it, though.
Well, I wasn't asking for that. I just wondered if you had put if there were any illustrations of what you're doing that are public record.
Yeah, they're, and the full package that I gave the city is not public, but I think that we got that approved, I believe, in October. So I think those records are still available if you're interested.
So Justin, let me
Yeah.
ask you a
Well,
quick
the
question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The development agreement would be.
As I understand it, the building code requires that you have to stay underneath 4 stories if it's stick-built lumber.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you using the garage as the first 2 that you're gonna be this decorative cement or concrete?
Mm-hmm.
And then going stick up above that, or?
Mm-hmm.
But you're 6 stories.
So you're not using steel.
Well, so there's part of the building code that restricts that way. There's another part that allows me to do what I'm doing. That makes sense.
Well, I don't know, that's why I
Yeah,
was asking.
yeah, and so you can actually go 5 stories
With
in
wood.
the correct area of the building code. It's more expensive, especially in our seismic region. It becomes what's, the wood has its capacities in the seismic zone. If we in an earthquake zone, if we didn't have that, then you'd probably see it more often. But you can go up to 5.
Okay, and then Ryan mentioned the other day that the size of the fire equipment for Logan City, so that's where their height limit has come in.
Yeah.
And we basically are serviced by Logan. So,
Okay. That is yep.
So that's why the height limit is where it's at.
But only at 45. That's set by them.
No, 45 is set by us. But
Oh.
That's why I'm asking about.
But your Logan City's height limit?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And they reviewed my drawings and my heights.
So let's get this straight. Then the city of Logan has got a limitation of 84 feet
I think so.
because of their fire equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there any reason that we couldn't do the same thing? I mean, if they're using 84, then we could go to 84. I mean, that's, I'm not that
Potentially.
we potentially could go that far.
That's right, and so there's, I mean, we'll leave it at that. The potential's there. It doesn't mean that it's feasible from a cost standpoint, though.
Because you're going to steel and glass.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's where it'll break down for the demographics in this valley. Okay, well, I think I've talked your ear off.
What is their landscaping requirements like? You might have, if you talked about that while I was out, you don't have to.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
0. Logan's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't. They have open space requirements, but in this particular project, we weren't required. But we have 60% of the rooftop accessible for people to use. So we'll put quasi landscaping up there. I mean, it's not going to be turf, right? But it will be planter boxes for trees and shrubs. It's not just going to be a route that you can go walk on. It's going to be a tremendous amenity.
Are you going to do that on the top of your parking structure?
And on top of the building, too. There's going to be 2.
The building and the parking structure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, the parking structure fills up the entire site, except for the setbacks.
10 foot?
I actually got them down to 5. Yeah.
So the high school students who are skinny can go between the buildings?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you might have been out when he said, if they do 10 feet and
Yeah.
if they tear down the house that's next to it and build the same thing, then there would be 20 feet of alleyway that just creates problems with high school students. So.
Well, yeah, or just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a little cynical to say something like that, but I think there's a certain level of reality that goes along with alleyways. When you consider something like this, you want to have something in your zone that addresses that. Adjacency to other buildings. That could just be another bullet point on your
So we have quite a small commercial offering in Providence, and I don't know that we would have that issue with alleyways at this point in time. I don't see any place where we would.
Well, as people created these developments with taller buildings, they would create, the alleyways would come as a result of that. Just like Justin mentioned, you have the first building, and they look fine because this little house is over here, but then you get the little house gone and the next building goes in, and all of a sudden there's your narrow alleyway that appears.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
Two thoughts, if I could. You and I, when I extended the invitation to you, you mentioned something about your firm had written a code for North Logan and one of the key aspects of it. And I wanted to just.
Well, if I did, I don't remember saying that.
Maybe it was Danny.
Was off the
Maybe it
record.
was Danny I talked to.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah, sorry.
But is there something specific there? Do you have a question for me that you want me to
No,
address?
I didn't understand
So
what
are
he
you
said.
gonna hand these out?
Yeah, go ahead and those are for Danny.
Okay.
Danny's. By the way, he texted me and he's sick and so he took the time to write stuff.
Do you have our questions?
Well, good. If that's it, I think I'll end. Thank you for
Thank you
listening.
for taking the time to come and share your
We haven't
expertise with
beat
us.
anybody up yet today. You could be the one. Thanks.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin.
Are you want me to stick around? Are you going to continue to talk about this, or
You're welcome to.
Give us
Welcome to
10 minutes. We're
Okay.
going to give us 10 minutes.
Okay,
It's an open
yeah.
meeting, so
okay?
Take one of these and.
interesting. He says the requirement for retail. I understand that this requirement is in the code, but I think it's incorrect and poor planning for a city to dictate a certain type of use within the framework of a code. I suspect we probably need to post this, do we?
You could read it and we'd have it in the minutes. It would be recorded and then when they transcribe the minutes, or we could,
Should we do that?
that's up to you.
I can read it in for those people. Do we have anybody on Facebook?
I haven't pulled that up.
Or you could reference it and ask that Jesse attach it.
Okay, I
You
think
could
we'll
do
do
it
that rather
like
than
that.
waste everybody's time reading it. But this is a document provided by Danny McFarland about our mixed-use zone. And he's made some interesting points here that I think as a commission we ought to consider. I don't know if tonight's the night. We can put it on for another study item next time. Give us a chance to look at this and digest it and be able to think about it. But from a planning commission standpoint, what we're trying to do is what's best for the citizens. It would be nice to be able to provide housing for those people, particularly individuals that are on the lower income area, because where are they going to live? Are they going to be homeless? Or what are we going to do as a population to help these people be able to live somewhere?
Are you asking a question?
Well, it sounded like a question to me.
Okay, so why is it the responsibility of Providence City to provide that? Why can't they look around, why can't somebody like that look around and decide, okay, here's the cheapest place I can rent, or this is closest to my school or closest to my work? Why do we have to?
They're already doing that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, and I don't, let them do it.
I feel like we have a moral responsibility. I feel like we have a moral responsibility to help people.
Part of the reason is that the state code
Is going to mandate it.
tells us that we have to allow for
Well,
it. So, or work with it.
Okay, so that we just lost our, let me say the word, sovereignty to the state?
Well, if our legislators
Yeah?
pass a ruling, we elected them. And if the
But
governor signs it and the legislators pass it,
then it
we have to
overrides,
work to
it
overturn it.
overrides the city code.
Yes.
And they haven't done that yet.
No, I hope not.
But they're headed
They
that
are
direction.
mandating that the cities take one of, I think, 19, adopt 3 or 4 of 19 suggested ideas that are encouraging it, and they're going to tie funding to that eventually, is my guess.
Extortion, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, well,
Control.
Control.
they've also just passed it. The governor hasn't signed it yet, but they passed a thing that says that the contractors can sign off their own coding.
Four-way inspections.
Right.
I don't mean to change the subject, but I'm going to circle back around to it. I'm not trying to intentionally change it. But the thing that I liked about the mixed-use zone is I've got kids that are living in New York City. They're not going back. He's finishing up medical school. He wants to get out of there. I lived in New York City. I wouldn't want to go back there. A lot of people are leaving with the COVID, and they found that they can telecommute. And I'm just seeing a lot of my construction clients doing homes over in the Bear Lake Valley area on both sides. People are moving there, and there's got to be, I mean, I think we've seen it here. And I sort of see where the mom and pop grocery store and the businesses may come back into the community with the people staying at home and working out of the home. And I'm sure that,
And wanting to walk.
yeah, wanting to walk, or my wife and I have electric bikes. I'm not the best bicyclist without a little assistance, but with it I'm okay. But I think people are, I think the mixed use, we don't have that much land. I mean, if we only have one piece of land, we're spending a whole lot of time on that one piece of land. But if the idea is, hey, with COVID, we've had some changes, and I read an article in my Utah Bar Journal today that the courts are probably going to stay telecommuting for anything but trials, which means any hearing that I have at an appellate court is going to probably be done by televideo, particularly if you're from St. George or Logan. They're looking at the cost of what that takes for the client to pay to travel down there for a 20-minute argument. And I think we need to just look at it. Scarlett, you guys are probably getting stuff from the Utah League of Cities that you could share with us if they're doing anything on this or projecting anything.
You mean as to the cultural impacts of COVID and what we need to plan for the future as far as commuting and things, or the requirements for
commuting, and what's going to happen, because the zoning ordinances are going to have to be responsive to that to some degree, and that's what I'm interested in. And maybe they haven't got anything. I don't
think we know.
I think, I would guess it's too early. I mean, I wouldn't be building commercial property or retail property right now. We've got this new Adams building over here, this Class 1A building. Nobody's moved into it. It's been up and done for a year. Over
Where Ellis's used to
Ellis's used to be, yeah. And
my understanding is one of the tenants is actually not wanting to fulfill the lease they signed on.
so I'm guessing, and I don't know. I don't think anybody does know, but I'm going to guess that the retail and the office buildings are going to be waning, at least for a while. I mean, I comment every time we drive up there. They put these new buildings in and everybody moves to them, and then what's going on with the old buildings? They're just sitting there.
Do you have any information on that, Justin, from architectural or? I know your firm does engineering as well.
Yeah. Large industrial type facilities are more common request for my firm, but commercial is the next push from the real estate.
Retail or commercial?
Commercial.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And I don't know if that's necessarily, that's a state, so I'm a part of real estate trades, professional groups, so I can stay in front of that type of information, and that's what they're forecasting, that the influx of migration from other states to the state of Utah is actually going to increase the need for office space. But maybe that, I don't really know that maybe I'm not offering something that's really in line with what you're talking about, because I think as we're talking about development, maybe your comment is how much is appropriate to require as a part of a mixed use zone?
Yeah.
And I would say I don't know. I do think that having it in there, maybe not as a set requirement, but to allow for it is
as a
important.
suggestion as opposed to set?
It is, yeah, it's important, or a certain range, because no one wants to live on the ground floor in this type of mixed use. Okay, so what is it best used for? Commercial or retail, or a parking structure face. Those are really no one really wants to be in a dense environment, and people walking down their sidewalk, they have to have the blinds drawn because they can see right into their place. So those units won't sell. So what do people want? Well, they want to be able to look into something. So maybe I see Danny's comment. I think he's right to a certain extent. The way I would counter it is to say it's important to consider what kind of culture you're trying to develop here. If it's a walkable space, you want people to be able to walk to something that's not just their residence.
Thank you for your comments and your insight. That's one of the things that we wanted to accomplish tonight, was to get someone else's input, someone who deals with this every day, that can give us some background information that would be good for us to consider as we make our decision. Again, we're trying to do what's best for Providence and for the citizens of Providence, keeping everything with that small town feel, but we realize that it's going to fill up. Any other comments? Brian's always good for a comment.
No, I'm done to comment it out.
Either one of you? Are you okay if we push this to the next meeting and have a chance to look at these comments and consider what we've heard tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That having been said, any comment from staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We don't have Rowan here to do that. Joe?
I'll move that we adjourn.
Okay,
Oh, that was an
second?
easy one. Second. That's the
Okay,
easiest one.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. So you've got your homework to study.